Okay.
The weight.
Hello.
It just takes about 8 seconds usually.
Okay.
I guess it's been 25.
Wait. Okay. Yes. Great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another live today. So I'm going to be chatting with Tara this morning about the path of devotion. And devotion is often practiced in today's modern world as devotion to money and devotion to success. And what is not practiced anywhere near enough is devotion to spirit and devotion to yourself. So Tara's going to be giving you some simple ways to cultivate devotion in your daily life today. And she's had a beautiful journey with devotion herself. So maybe, Tara, if you can start off by telling us about your own journey with devotion and what devotion means to you.
Thank you, darling. That was a beautiful introduction. So when we decided to do this live, it's because I'm experiencing devotion at like a whole new level now in my life, living in Costa Rica with a kirtan band, doing the things that I love. And so I've been connected even more deeply to that energy. So I've been reflecting back on my journey to devotion and like where it all began. So let's start there.
Great.
And I was one of those people who didn't have any religious background. My parents didn't talk about God in any way. And then I kind of had like an existential crisis when I realized that humans were fucking up the planet. This was in 1999, so it wasn't really talked about much. Finished my degree in marine ecology and went, what's happening to the world? And like, is there a God? What is this God thing? So I went to the forest and lived there for 4 months, like just in isolated shacks, starting to connect with that energy of God and whatever that was. And for me, it was the jungle, it was the forest. And I'm really back connected to that again here in Costa Rica.
Mm-hmm.
And just this like simplicity of being devoted to the planet that we live on, that is feeding us and nourishing us and sustaining us
Mm-hmm.
and dying. You know, and there's like atrocities going on. So in Costa Rica being like, there's fresh water that I can swim in and it's not polluted, and just seeing all that. So that was my beginning with devotion. And then from there, spirit, as it does, just orchestrates. You know, everyone's got a story to tell about how did you get on the spiritual path. You've got a whole story. We should do a live on that.
Yeah.
And I was waiting a bar at a festival, like after I came back from the Daintree, going, what do I do with my life now? And this woman says to me, there's this spiritual teacher called Amachi from India who's in Melbourne. Do you want to come for a 3-day workshop? And I live in Adelaide, so it was like a 10-hour drive. And something in me went, yes. You know, those moments where it's just like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
like alignment. So I followed that. And I'm sitting in this hall with thousands of people, living with them, going like, what the fuck have I signed up for? And there's this woman, for those of you who have met her, who is extraordinary. Mata Amritananda Mai is her name, and she's known as the Hugging Mother. And she'd be, oh my God, probably like early 80s now. But she goes around the world, still does hugging like 17,000 people a day.
Still?
So I'm in, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm in what's known as a guru field for the first time. It's a master who has a level of connection to God energy, which I love the definition of God as grand organized design. My scientific brain loves that side. And just going, wow, I'm feeling all these feelings. And then that was my direction. And I spent 10 years living in between India and my life as a marine ecologist in Australia. and did
Mhm.
what I could to have lots of time off and get less pay, but prioritize my spiritual path.
Mhm.
And that's when I really learned bhakti, devotion, the path of devotion. And I remember when I first went to a Amma Kirtan, which is what I now sing, and this is where I first got introduced to it. I was like, what is this music? What are these teachings about? So I explored the teachings of Hinduism through Amma, through Sai Baba, through Tibetan Buddhism, and
Mhm.
all of them really point to the same thing, which is devotion. This is my interpretation of it that I now understand with Tantra, I should say. This was not my interpretation of it when I first came to it.
Mhm.
Is it's devotion to the remembering and the connecting to God, to universal energy force, to spirit, to whatever the created that we are, oneness, wholeness.
Mhm.
And we devote ourselves to that through connection and forming a relationship with, just like we would a friend, a beloved, like, why not, God? Then you start to vibrate at a different frequency and make different choices because you're navigating life through a different lens.
Mhm.
And that lens at the end of the day, through which you see life because of devotion, is one of trust and one of surrender.
Mhm.
Because if we're truly believing in, devoted to spirit, then we wouldn't have resistance to life, because we'd be in the remembering that everything is unfolding. And for those of
Mhm.
you who have had plant medicine experiences, everything is unfolding in grand organized design perfection. So we would be free of fear, we would be free of judgment, we would be flowing with life. And so with devotion, we're just continuing to remember that and come back to that again and again and again, so that we can actually surrender to life by feeling everything,
Mhm.
to then engage through that perspective.
Mm. Beautiful. And how, when you first started on that kind of path, how did your view of what you thought devotion was change? Like you said, since you found Tantra, it's kind of evolved a little bit. Where did
Mm.
it start?
So I just desperately wanted to know truth. Like, I desperately wanted to know what truth was. And because I didn't have any teachers, because I didn't receive that education from my parents like you did with your mum,
Mhm.
and I didn't receive it through a religion.
Mhm.
So I'm really blessed that really good teachers came into my life to give me that education, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
But in that process, I didn't have all the tools that I need. I didn't have Tantra, which is the education that I didn't get just by that lineage of Hinduism in India and how they do spirituality, which is beautiful. But what I experienced in a lot of those communities and traditions is that there's a suppression of the emotional body and sexual body.
Mhm.
And that's India's history. That's what it was always done, which is why sexuality is so in shadow there and suppressed, because it's suppressed. And
Mhm.
so it meant that I was devoted to my husband. Like, we would just see each other and call each other Shiva and Shakti. And there was a level of devotion with him that was just like so beautiful.
Mhm.
And in that, he was 10 years older than me and my spiritual teacher as well, in a way, not officially at all, but that's the role he took.
Mhm.
And that's the role that I wanted him to take. I'm like, tell me everything. I want
Mhm.
to know. I want to be self-realized. I want to merge and be one with everything. So he guided me, but he had shadows up to the wazoo and the great spiritual ego shadow. So being married to that was interesting. So
Mhm.
that devotion became one where I wasn't listening to my emotional body, and I would be a good spiritual girl, meditate at least an hour every morning and at least an hour every night. And
Mhm.
just when I could feel my emotional body contracting, I would just meditate and just rise above it and connect to source energy and go, I trust in the perfection of everything. And I did a really good job of spiritually bypassing.
Yeah.
Great for that, along with a few other things, you know. So that's where it can go into shadow. And that's not the
Mhm.
fault of those traditions and those teachings. It's just, you know, there's always it's just not the whole picture. So when I
Mhm.
met Tantra, I'm like, it talks about everything that my gurus teach about, and it teaches about what to do with this emotional body,
Mhm.
what to do with sexuality, because no one is talking about it. And I remember when I sat in my first sister circle with your mom, my first tantric sister circle, was like, all right, I'm going to try this out after turning my back on spirituality for like years. When I ended my marriage, I'm like, bye, India, didn't go back. And then after, I'm like, okay, pendulum swings, I'm going to eat meat, I'm going to drink wine now, I'm going to do like all the human things. And then I met Tantra and learned how to do the things well.
Mhm.
Where
Yeah.
you can have a good time and you can live life, and you can just be so connected at your heart and devoted and just, you know, serve humanity. That's where
Mhm.
devotion gets you. Is
Mhm.
it's If you're on the path of devotion, you've pretty much signed up to be a light worker, you know,
Mhm.
in some way, whatever that form is. And you see that everywhere. That's why we've got the practitioner training, is to help people to do it well.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, Tantra was just that piece that goes, we are divine beings having a human experience. And actually, it's through our humanness, it's through duality, that then we get to go beyond duality. And I say hooray to that, because it's fun. Life is fun. And spirit's just going, can you have a good time down there? Heaven or hell. And that's the paradox that sometimes really still shakes me, is how much just brutality and evil that there is on the planet, that just makes me shudder that exists when this magnificent life exists, and the both can coexist, that's a whole nother life. Depending on a whole
Yeah.
lot of things. But if you're listening to this live, then you're here to receive and be able to benefit hugely from the path of devotion. And Amma, my first teacher, it was her teachings I was reading on devotion. And she was the one who convinced me through her writings, is because she said, if you're trying to reach God realization by yourself, without a guru, without a teacher, it's like walking up to the peak of a summit and rolling a big stone before you.
Mhm.
And I was
Yeah.
contemplating that today before this live, and it just makes so much sense.
Mhm.
Realization is what you've signed up for, and we kind of all have, whether we're conscious of it or not. Then why not go to the source that we're here to remember, and just hang out and get to know that energy and become familiar and integrate it into your everyday life. Plant medicine is incredible. Psychedelics, amazing to have an experience of like, oh, it's real and it's undeniably real, but you don't need to go to those heights to connect to that. And if
Mhm.
you want to be able to connect with that yourself without medicine before.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you know, the integration's too hard. It's too far a jump in reality and perception from where you are now. So if you're considering plant medicine, do embodiment work first. Do Tantra
Mhm.
first.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Do your
Definitely.
awakening first. What do you
Yeah.
have to say about all of this, Sadell?
Oh, I love what you're saying. I think it's great. And yeah, I agree with the plant medicine thing. I had an experience similar to that. And I obviously grew up with mum. So it was all kind of familiar to me, but I was pushing it away. And like you just was like, no, for a bit. I was into it, then I wasn't. And then I had a plant medicine sit, and I just had this remembering and this calling of like, this is my path. And I can't even really explain like what the path was, but it was just like tantra and spirituality definitely called me back. And then yeah, since then
That was
I've
such a shift, wasn't it? It was like overnight. I got the call
yeah
from your mom. She was like, "Oh my God, she had the best journey. She remembered that she's going to be a teacher." And I'm like, "Yay!"
yeah, it was crazy. And because I was still kind of in the resistance to it, and then I had this and I was like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Wow, what a blessing. What a
Yeah,
blessing. It's
yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. And so what does, now that you've found tantra and kind of blended the two in your daily life, what does devotion to spirit and devotion to yourself look like now?
Yeah, so there's so many ways that I've actually integrated it into my daily life. So the key ones are that when you wake up first thing in the morning, it's when your consciousness has just come out of the dream state, where you believe that whatever's going on in your dream is real. And then you wake up and you're like, that was a dream. So you've gone through a death and birth, that eventually these bodies, which when you start working in the cosmos, this life is like, tink, a blink of an eye. Then you start to feel that. Oh, sorry, I just lost my. Where was I? Sorry, I just forgot my.
You start to, we were talking about
Now I'm going to test.
devotion in daily life.
Yeah, so thank you. So first thing in the morning when you wake up and you're in between realms, then that's when you want to connect with spirit in whatever way that is. And it's whatever practice connects you to spirit. Mantra is a great way to do that. Deity worship is amazing. My favorite thing at the moment, because I have nature accessible to me, is just going out in nature first thing in the morning, putting my feet on the earth, and then just sitting with myself and just checking out what's there. Like we all do, we all do daily practices. And so it's like doing that in nature. And that may be meditation, that may be contemplation. I end up always singing,
Mm-hmm.
dancing sometimes, and then I swim in the ocean. And it's whatever brings you back to remembering, right? So kirtan I love, and the path of devotion with tantra is the path working with the deities. So we work with all of them, Ganesh, Shiva, and just starting to connect to these energies of divinity that are just frequencies that when you chant their mantra or you sing their name, you're receiving their superpowers, right?
Mm.
Vibration, and vibration is everything. That's what we are, and that's what expands us and contracts us. So when you're singing mantra, and then what I love about the deities is there's that kind of biohacking going on, really, with the technology of mantra, but then the bhakti comes in, where you're just merging with these deities, you're becoming them, so you naturally love them and want to worship them and put them on your altar. Like I got the whole entourage when I travel, and paintings in my house, because then they're there and you're communicating with them and singing them and putting on their mantras. And if
Mm-hmm.
you really need support with one of them, like I'm always working with one of the main deities. And what I first did when starting out with deities is 30 days with each deity. And the first deity I worked with was Durga, because I sucked at setting healthy boundaries in relationships. And it just kept tripping me up. And so I worked with Durga, and this is when I was with Shiva. And
Do you want to just maybe quickly explain Durga for anyone who maybe doesn't know?
so Durga, that's on my altar, and Kali. Can you grab the other one too? Oh, that's really handy. So this is Durga, and she's the warrior goddess. She rides a lion, and she's got all of her tools, right? So she's the goddess of strength, protection, healthy boundaries, speaking your truth. Like, babe, you are Durga. You Hail Durga. He says what she feels and really like trusts that voice and speaks up. And you know how much I
Mhm.
used to suck at that. This
Mhm.
is where it all changed. And
Mhm.
once you work with one of these deities, you will get an opportunity to practice. I don't like to say you will be tested. It's like, no, we got to practice this. We got to feel it in our nervous system and expand our nervous system's capacity to hold a new energy frequency that
Mhm.
you chant the mantra, you look at the deity, you run energy with it to receive its transmission, and then just feel what is the feeling of strength and protection and courage, and then you might start growling as you're going Om Dum Durgaye Namaha, Om Dum Durgaye Namaha, and then feeling.
Mhm.
And actually, we created a free offering that we'll send you guys a link for, and it has access to. So, first module of our practitioner training is how to worship deities, and Raven and I created these amazing audios that are chanting the mantra, and then actually like an initiation into the deities, and
Mm.
such journey. It was so incredible.
Yeah, I love those audios.
Yeah. So if we can put the link in
Mhm.
wherever it needs to go,
Yeah.
and then you get them for free, and it's Shiva, Lakshmi, and Durga, I think,
Mhm.
or maybe Kali.
Yeah.
Yes. So that would be great.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. I had the same kind of. I really was felt very called to the deities quite early on, and I have them on my altar now. I always had, one or the. I have three now, but for a while I did just have one, and I was kind of the opposite of you. You have Durga, and I have all the softer ones like Parvati up there right now to like soften. And yeah, it's so incredibly helpful to just call those energies in. Every day in my daily practice in front of the altar, I get to see her and worship her and feel that energy in my own body, and it makes such a difference.
I remember all of some of my girlfriends in Bali when they started to like feel their longing for a relationship. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, you ready for Parvati? And they're like, no, I'm terrified of her, the cosmic wife of Shiva,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
sweet Parvati. And every one of them did 30 days. There were three friends. And then they went on and met their partner. I'm like,
Mm.
this
Yeah.
still works. I'm looking at
Yeah.
my altar and being like, "Mm."
Yeah, yeah. It's
We are
powerful
ready.
stuff. Powerful stuff.
It really is.
And do you want to speak about devotion in relationship and how that can benefit a relationship and how you can bring that into, your relationship?
Beautiful. Oh, so many ways. And I want to speak into something that links to that, but is also separate to that, which is that devotion can only go unhealthy or unconscious if you're not equally or more so devoted to yourself. So in my first marriage,
Mm,
I was devoted to him. I was like, "Oh my God, you're my husband, my king, my," and would humble myself always. And when there was an argument and he'd say blah, 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 and it's not to do with me, then I would go, okay, I'm going to look at that and be like, yep, that's me. Yep.
mm,
Okay, that. And it's now like a superpower that I'm a good self-reflector, you know,
mhm. Yeah.
and leave reflections and then do the inner work. But it meant that I wasn't listening to my body so that's where if there's devotion for another person, that's more than the devotion to self. So when you
Mm,
have that balance, relationships just become this Shiva Parvati story, or this Radha Krishna story, or this Sita Rama story, which are all the like husband wife consorts in the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, which are the two Hindu scriptures, which there's so much wisdom in them. And it's that energy of seeing the beloved as spirit, as God. And it doesn't mean that you're a pushover, and it doesn't mean that you say, hey, don't you speak to me like that, you know? Because there's love at the center, and actually the most loving thing we can do for our partners, if they're being a banana, tell them they're a banana. They'll stop being a banana. You and your mum are amazing at that, you know? You guys are both always, yeah, inspired. I can see a lot of women around you because you're just in your truth, and but then you receive feedback as well. So it's like trust your partner, love your partner, listen to what they're saying, and then be devoted to your own self so that you have a life outside of the relationship because you're not making them the center of it. And this
Mm-hmm.
core teachings of Tantra come in are the conversations between Shiva and Parvati, right? Which is the divine union between husband and wife and merging as one, like, you know, the ultimate of partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And how they got into their relationship is she was like, I want Shiva. I don't want anyone else but Shiva. It's what all the ladies in Ub would say. I just want my Shiva. You know, I'm just going to manifest my Shiva. And Parvati was like, I want my Shiva. I know what that's going to take. So I'm going to go do tapas, which is spiritual austerities, yoga, meditation, pranayama, emotional alignment, everything. She just practiced all of the sutras, all of the practices you could do to come into inner union.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we teach so much about inner union, and everyone's asking about sex and relationships. This is where it starts, inner union.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you become divine. That's how you remember that you are everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so in relationship, if you're devoted to your practice, do your practice, your self daily practice every day, even if it's just 5 minutes. But more, because you deserve it. And a daily practice becomes fun because you're sitting at your beautiful altar, you're playing nice music, you're lighting candles. That's how I start my day when I sit at the altar, and how I end my day to sit at the altar. So practical step number 2, I guess, is have an altar. And
Mm-hmm.
I have this beautiful new piece on my altar, which is this like great grandfather tree of the earth, and these trees and this jungle, and it's been the initiation into Costa Rica, and I'm about to do my first ayahuasca ceremony, and I've waited 47 years to do it, because the way that I roll with psychedelics and medicine is I need to be able to connect to the reality, to the awareness of that medicine before I have it. Even if
Mm.
2%, I need to get a whiff of what it's about
Mm-hmm.
to prepare myself for it. And then when I get the call, and I got the call, she was like,
Mm-hmm.
"You ready?" I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's
everything
so
goes and it's
important.
natural. So
Mm-hmm.
so now that that's come into my field on my journey, he's on my altar, the grandfather tree, which was part of my journey, and then going into the grandmother ayahuasca. So I'm starting to be devoted to whatever those teachings are, and it's devotion to the earth, it's devotion to the land, it's devotion to nature, it's devoted to the fungi, it's devoted to the spirit realms. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so there's all these beautiful paths to remembering the divine, that any of them, when they're gone into extreme or they go into shadow, start to not serve its purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really, really blessed that after my time in India, after my 2-year break, rebellion, I then found Tantra and was just like, oh, this spiritual stuff makes so much more sense. The deity makes so much more sense. I started to sing kirtan in a
Mm.
whole way. Yeah, yeah, we were in India at the Being Woman retreat, and I was singing this song, "Remind me, my Lord, remind me, my Lord, remind me, my Lord, who I am." And there was one line in it that she said to me, "Okay, so the energy you're singing that is like giving yourself, you know, like, oh, like bowing is in like, I'm not worthy. So you got to
Mm.
shift. You can't, don't
Mm.
wrong. And I'm like, ah. And then I felt that part where devotion was like this, that was still in my nervous system. And I just had, everyone kind of goes through that phase in the beginning to then like, oh, my beloved, like
Mm-hmm.
Shakti, God, hi, I love you, I missed you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's when we take the guru off the pedestal and go, oh, you are me and I am you. And it's crazy because every guru who terms themselves that, they all say the same thing, that I am God. I am God. Sure, come here and worship me. But so are you. And the only
Mm-hmm.
difference between you and me is that I remember it and you're remembering.
Mm.
Still in the ashrams, it was like, I remember I was living there for 2 years at one stage. I actually quit my job and said, I've just got to try this living in India. I'm like going here every year for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. Let's just move. So my husband and I left our epic jobs, rented our house, and then went to India. And it was just beautiful, like every day in this ashram, singing with thousands of people in like gorgeous saris. I like love the saris, and we're in service. So I was working in an orphanage with these amazing street kids who this American couple were educating. So service was a big part of it. And yeah, every day when you're in that field of bhakti, it's amazing. And the shadow side of that is I got clawed, I got elbowed, I got my hair pulled, because there's thousands of people going into the space to see the guru each day. It's called darshan, where you receive the guru's blessing. And they were just scramming to get to the front, to get physical proximity closer to the guru, because I don't know, then you feel like like people go nuts.
Mm-hmm.
People go crazy. So
You got clawed. God.
yeah, yeah. And you kind of do go a bit crazy in those places because there's such an externalization of God.
Mm-hmm.
And yet a guru is like someone who has cities. They have power. They just emanate. Like anytime Sai Baba, I would know that Sai Baba came into the room because I'd always be in meditation or just singing with my eyes closed. And then I would see these concentric rings of like thousands of like concentric rings of light. It was so cool. And the
Wow.
only other person that's happened to is your mum a few times in retreats where she's
Mm-hmm.
saying something especially epic because it's just
Mm.
so it's kind of like medicine journeys, you're being around the epicenter of a medicine, a tradition, and an energetic power center. And those
Mm.
places in India are energetic power centers. It's like another universe. I can't even
Mm.
when I'm in India that I'm on planet Earth.
Mm. We need to go to India.
I reckon next year, I reckon we do a being woman.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. And a
Mm.
being man. We'll get Tees on it. Tees and Aaron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great. I love what you said about, in relationship being as devoted to yourself as you are to your partner. I think that is so important. And with anything, any devotion, being as devoted to yourself. And I the last year for a while there kind of stopped devoting to myself, and I didn't even really realize, and I was just abandoning myself a little bit, and then our relationship really, it got rocky. And I had this huge
Wow.
process at the end of the year, and just I kind of broke down because he had said, I think you need to work through this on your own. And I had continually kind of kept abandoning myself through turmoil. I would feel left by him, and then I would leave myself also. And I
Mm.
just had this moment of like, I was calling out for help, like literally throwing a tantrum on the floor, being like, help me. And then I just went in front of the mirror and I was like, help yourself. And then this whole process just unraveled, and it was so beautiful. And I met this part of myself that I had been abandoning. And yeah, it's
Wow. I
yeah.
love that. And thank you for sharing that, because it speaks to this part of devotion that is accessible to everyone, which is to ask for help. And the
Mhm.
deities are amazing for that. And
Mhm.
this whole deity journey started with your mum gifting me this Ganesh painting that when COVID first hit, her and Aaron found this amazing painter who did all of our deities, this
Mm.
Bali family that painted their whole lineage, the men. And I started to worship Ganesh. And I remember Sai Baba when I was living in his ashram in India explaining at some stage that Ganesh is like an energy that because so many people pray to, like it's a physical energy field that's there,
Mhm.
that part of, in another time on the planet, this whole lila of Shiva and Shakti and all the stories. They're amazing. And Awakening Shakti by Sally Camden is an amazing.
Mm. So incredible.
Every woman should have access to that book just for that
Mhm.
initiation into the deities.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah, and asking, I was in that moment looking at myself and asking for help, and also what ended up coming through was that I met Shiva within myself, and I felt him holding me, but also me holding myself with that energy within myself. So, yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Wow, that's kind of where your process takes you to, right? You then like go straight to the divine energetic form of divinity, which is the deities,
Mhm.
and embody and own them as yourself, and then just see that you're not separate from them. They're just like really cool pictures of all these, this is Kali, of these deities that hold energetic frequencies that are us, and they're just here coming into physical reality so that we can be humans and have a beautiful experience of bhakti. Bhakti is the most beautiful part. We get to love every aspect of the divine through like beautiful, melodic, mindful, expressive practices. And we get to live as that. We get to live as the gods and the goddesses. We're
Mm.
probably some scripture and eons to come for some generation of people.
Yeah.
God knows. Who knows?
Mm. Yeah, yeah. So I think, devotion to yourself in the way of, like you said, with your daily practice is absolutely so important and so beautiful. And then throughout the day, taking that time to just have moments of pause and to bring presence into what you're doing. It doesn't need to be, it's beautiful to sit in front of the altar, and I think that should be a part of it as well, but it doesn't always. Devotion can look like just being present while you're sipping a cup of tea and devoting to yourself and just taking time to slow down and be with yourself and be in nature, taste the beautiful tea.
Mhm. Yes, and one key thing that I want to say about devotion is whatever it is that you're working on, that's kind of like your Achilles heel. So mine is stress, right? And being in Costa Rica for the last, it will be 4 months soon, has been the most calm and nervous system regulated I've been in my life.
Mm,
And I don't know myself, and yet it's just so natural. Like this is the new
mhm,
norm. So I'm
mhm,
really hyper vigilant now of when stress comes up. And I caught myself today reviewing something right before I had to go to a session. And I should have just not reviewed it then, but waited till I had time. And because I couldn't let go of my attachment to, oh, I have to work it out now, I got caught, right? All the unconscious beliefs and patterns, whatever it is for you. Maybe it's with food, maybe it's with phone addiction, whatever it is. And I ended up catching it because something happened where I had to wait for like 5 minutes. So spirit gave me a little like, take a pause, remember what you press the pause button. So I stopped, and instead of going on my phone, good girl Tara, I love you so much, you're doing so well, is I went, I'm feeling exhausted from 30 minutes of stress. I'm like, whoa. So I went and lied down, put my hands on my body, and then I was just like, oh, I'm angry. And I was frustrated. Things went done the way that I wanted them to be done, blah, blah. And I just come out of 3 hours of rehearsal, and there was just all this, it was frustration. And so I just went outside. I'm at the Awake community, got on the grass. They're building like a 5-stage festival that starts in 2 days. So there's people everywhere, and I just start shaking and then growling and then like, and I just been singing and talking to my kirtan group. When we sing Durga and Kali, feel your anger, feel your fire, and connect that to your power center, but do it on your mat. Don't do it to someone. I'm like, I better practice what I sing. So I'm feeling it, and all this energy just went like this, right? So I was devoted to my practice in that moment when I saw myself in contraction, and you just get better and better at catching that. And sometimes we suppress, we numb, we avoid, we distract, we come up with excuses. I'm busy, I got to work, I can't feel this. But the more pauses you can take when you're feeling the contracted and being devoted to that more than anything in your life is what will change your life, make your relationships amazing, make your 3D life amazing, and make your connection to spirit amazing. Because anytime that you're not in ease and grace, it doesn't mean you have to be like happy, happy, happy. But even when there's stuff going on, remember, if we were really devoted to life and devoted to spirit, then we wouldn't stress. We would trust that everything is unfolding as it's meant to, and that it's all going to work out. And my experience is that it always does. It always does work out better than I can expect. And I know that. And every time I go through some level of doubt, which causes the fear and anxiousness and all of it, depression, like work addiction. So that devotion, and it was so beautiful. It was like spirit giving the little cherry on top. I'm growling. I just go straight to Kali and Durga, feel all this fire, and then it just went to vibration. You know, when you've processed anger enough, you go to rage, and then it just becomes fire, and then I'm like, and then I just hear this giggling in the background, and it gets louder and louder, and I'm still like, punching and releasing. And then they're laughing so much. I turn around, and these 4 kids are behind like this Balinese little hut that people hang out in at the Awake community. And they're looking at me. I'm just like, pew, just so expanded from clearing this energy. And then I run and jump into it, and they're on the back, and I'm like, rah! And pissed themselves laughing and just went running, and then other people were running, and it was great. I got to finish my process chasing kids.
Oh, beautiful. Bit of expansion there, child coming in.
That's grace. So this is also another thing that I wanted to mention is grace for me is where it's like spirit's love for us that just goes, yes, we can clear this. Yes, this can shift. Yes, have courage to change. And so it's kind of like saying, can I have some help, please? And it's not like that's what we're saying when we're devoted to God, but we're building up a relationship that says, I love you, and like, oh, this is tough. And so that's prayer. So prayer and grace go together. And when you pray to spirit in whatever form that is, then spirit answers. Spirit always answers. You just got to ask. It's such a shame that we get taught at schools how to speak different languages, but no one told me you can just speak to spirit and ask for help and support. And you see people doing that around the world. And I think for me, where prayer always takes me, I go through the layers. Help me, this is really hard. I don't know how to do this. I'm confused. And then it's just like, show me truth. Just show me truth of this situation. I just want to know truth in everything in my life, because anything that's truth is everythingness. It's being self-actualized. It's remembering truth. And if it's not truth, it's illusion. And then it just gets, I just get impatient, on these, like, okay, can we clear that now, spirit? This is so annoying. And your mum's always like, hey, be patient with yourself. You didn't have, this experience, which is why you're feeling this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's nice when you have this connection and you're like, help me out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Just trusting
And,
that.
and every day in my practice, and I teach this in like workshops and retreats, and we can do it now, and I learned this from Sarita when I was doing some work with her in Bali, and I think we all do this really naturally as well. You just open your hands, I guess, in a V shape with your fingers pointing up, and close your eyes. Do this now, every one of you, and open through the crown. And then just let your gaze turn inwards as if you were looking through your crown out to source, out to the universe, out to the quantum field of everythingness and the unknown. And just open and just receive grace, receive light pouring through your crown, aligning you to truth, which is love. Breathe deeply into your body, which is divinity, which is safety, which is freedom, which is true power, which is courage and fearlessness, which is an open heart. And then slowly bring your hands down your central channel, continuing to just anchor it into your body with some touch to your hands, to your heart, to your belly. And there it is, your daily dose of grace that's accessible to all of us. And maybe you'll find your own way, but yeah, I see a lot of people doing that in dance and like just receiving and kirtan, meditation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Teach
Beautiful.
that, not just how to play soccer. Although I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And yeah, what you were saying about, when you're stressed, remembering and making it important to take that pause, and how it feels hard in the moment, but it's always going to be benefiting you. I definitely have had that same experience with working, and when I'm feeling stuff, I'll be like, no, I don't have time to feel this right now. I need to do my work. And then again, abandoning myself, in just little ways. But then, it's like I'm sitting at my computer, bawling my eyes out for like on and off, just resisting and creating suffering, instead of like now, I really am like, no, it's like, prioritize yourself, show up for yourself the same as you'd want anyone else to show up for you, and go take yourself and let yourself feel it. And then it's like, it's gone in 15, max 30 minutes, and then I can enjoy the rest of my day.
We really love to suffer, don't we?
Oh, it's ridiculous. And I'll be sitting at my computer, and I'll put on depressing songs, and I'll just be like, just like, go feel it.
And for other people as well, it can just be this moping, this like, woo, just stuck under this dark cloud of like everything's shit, and I'm contracted, and I'm depressed, and I'm gonna, whatever your thing is, eat lollies and be on my phone, and that like, and so that more kind of depressive state is energy that's not being expressed, so it just starts like sinking, because it's the only place it has to go. So you need to do extra work. Where suppressing your emotions can go to, because you've got to then activate your willpower to get through that fogginess of like depression and shutdown to then feel your emotional body.
Mm-hmm.
Totally
Yeah.
doable. I did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was all like depressed and fucked up and anxious and at different periods in my life. And Tantra was just like the fast track. And the only thing that's ever stopped me from expanding is not feeling my feelings. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing every time,
Mm.
every single time. This is why I just want to scream this work from, these teachings from the rooftops around the world. It's why when I met your mum, I'm like, let's get your teachings out to the world, please. Like, how was I not doing this in school?
Mm-hmm.
And when I had that first tantric women's circle that you were at, that was, I'm just like, wow, here's a woman who's not just teaching this and sharing this, but living it, because I met you. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I've never met a child like this. Like, what is going on here? You are so conscious and open and wise and deep and like in your energy, it was amazing. And I just was like, why didn't my mum tell me? I love my mum, my God. But she wasn't from that background, so she didn't know to teach me to that. But she was actually just kind of like that, a spiritual woman. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she is very actually a spiritual woman. She's
Mm-hmm.
my favorite human on earth. And yeah, why wasn't I taught that at school?
Mm.
Why would they not teach us this as
I know.
kids? They do the opposite. And they
Mm-hmm.
say, shh, don't
Mm-hmm.
be angry, don't be sad, poo, poo. And everyone's got their own story of that, maybe
Mm-hmm.
except you grew up
Yeah,
with the
but
opposite.
like even me, with growing up with that, it's so
Mm,
strong
mm,
everywhere.
mm.
I didn't go to school. I grew up with mum as my mum, and I still
Wow.
ended up for a couple years there suppressing everything, thinking sadness is weak. I don't need to express my anger properly, so I'm just gonna hold it in and be an angry bitch to everyone. Like that still happened, and it's like it. The people that did go to school, which is majority of the population, and grow up with
Mm,
parents that aren't consciously, letting them express their emotions, it's hard work to then retrain and reprogram all that.
exactly. That's why
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to get as many practitioners out there as possible, because it's like one-on-one sessions is what got me there. And
Mm-hmm.
when I left my mainstream job after 17 years of like being in this amazing job as a marine ecologist, working my ass off, not wanting to be there anymore, but also kind of still enjoying it, but wanting something more for myself. And I left because of work addiction was so high that I gave myself repetitive strain injury. Spirit was like, get out, you've got a mission, let's go. And I'm like, no, I don't trust. If I jump,
Yeah.
you're gonna catch me because I don't really know you. And I'd started tantra, so I started to actually connect to that.
Mm.
And the day that I resigned was after like me actually coming back from my lawyers and being in so much pain in my body from the RSI that I couldn't resign because I wouldn't listen to my body.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this huge tree. I'm on the freeway, and this thought flashed through my mind of, if you drive into the tree, you and no one else will suffer. Because my poor husband, everyone was, because I couldn't use my hands and I was in pain. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Your mum had just got back from like an overseas trip that day. And I did this UE over the freeway and drove to her house and was like, I know you just got back and you're not seeing clients for a while, but I need a session now. And it was her, your dad, and Ash, his wife at the time, and the three of them did a triple session on me together.
Mm.
And I had to feel it all. And I got in
Mm.
my car afterwards, drove to work, called in my boss, said, I'm resigning. And he was like, oh my God, I'm so happy. I love you so much. You're going to be fine. Like, you're going to be fine. But you've got to
Mm-hmm.
look after yourself.
Mm.
2 days later, have this like wake up with this very clear vision and message of, I should host Raven's, oh my God, that's so interesting, weekend workshops on archetypes. and all the archetypes are linked to the deities. That's so funny. And then very quickly I was like, I want to run this with you. And she had had a meditation a month before I resigned in her daily practice where Spirit said, Tara's going to be running the academy with you. And she's like, how? She can't use her hands. She can't use a
Yeah.
computer for more than 10 minutes every hour, and she's in excruciating pain. She's like, okay,
Wow.
I trust. That is a level of trust that your mum holds. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's such a beautiful way to live. And now
Mm.
I'm finally seeing like that is the fast track, is just to trust and have that connection and conversation with Spirit, because life is so
Mm-hmm.
much easier. So I
Mm-hmm.
went, broke it up, then came back to my body and was like, everything's okay. It's okay. So you might need to do a little bit of work. It's okay. Like, we're going to look after ourselves. We're not going to overwork anymore. We're going to keep our boundaries. And I just reminded myself again, I'm not going
Mm-hmm.
to overwork again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
That surrendering to your experience that's definitely what helped me when I read a book called The Surrender Experiment before I kind of
I love that book.
yeah, and when I was working with horses, I was not really in my body. I'd started to kind of, this was, I think it was after the mushroom sit, and I read The Power of Now and I read The Surrender Experiment. They both changed
Oh,
my life.
yeah.
And yeah, and I just it I was I realized how much of everything, I just saw the negative side of, and I thought about the negative side of it, and I thought of everything that could go wrong. And then after reading that book, and I was the same as you, I was working so much. I was in this hardcore job, like 4:30 a.m. mornings. It was not in my it wasn't
Mm.
feeling good in my body, and it was so terrifying for me. And I was just like, I need to leave, and I don't know what this is going to look like, and blah blah blah. And then the next week I talked to you, and you're like, I need someone to manage my social media. And then I left, and it's just like been so incredibly amazing.
And we're like, now we need to do this, and now we need to do that. Wow. Oh my God. And this is a perfect segue into our live next week, right? Which is about taking the leap, how to take in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And after saying to you, I want to talk about leaps, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've been contemplating, is every time it is better than I could possibly have imagined. So to
Mm-hmm.
complete that story, I resigned so fully that Spirit was able to come in and go, this is your next step, right?
Yeah.
I finally let go of resistance, and I'm like, fine, I will, who the fuck knows? Because what can you do if you can't use your hands? And I couldn't use my hands. And what
Wow.
happened is, because of that depth of surrender to go, fine, if I end up homeless, I end up homeless, then Spirit could say, how about this? And what happened is, that's when I started getting one-on-one sessions like every week from your mum. And
Mm.
4 months of having sessions, I healed in my body what 4 years of Western Australia's best, like, pain psychologists, neuroplasticity therapists, craniosacral, osteo, so much physio, like, you name what made me go, actually, I want to help get this work out to the world. Like, wow, wow,
Mm.
wow,
Oh, I have
wow.
chills as you're talking. I didn't know that it was so bad that you couldn't use your hands. Wow.
Yeah, poor Antosh had to like tie my shoelaces when I wanted to go walking.
Oh
That was
God.
only for a period of time. There were times it got better, it got worse. I really wanted to be able to keep working in front of a computer at a job that I didn't really like,
Mm. So it
because I
was
didn't.
like, nah, we're gonna keep giving you this message.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
yeah, stubborn. So now, like, recently when I had to look at my role with the academy, because I could feel that my new normal is working much less than I was still working, and your mum and I have both been working on, that the unhealthy versions of loving our jobs and being really in service is the
Mm-hmm.
work, because that can be a distraction and suppression of the emotional body as well, and old patterns of stress and all of that. Um, yeah, and just really working with that. And that was the next jump, was letting go of attachment to running the academy. And it
Mm-hmm.
was the most terrifying thing of my life that I had to look at 2 years before that. And the answer was like, no, this is like exactly what I want. But when I looked at it again this time, I was able to feel like it had shifted, and I had to feel my body. And it was like, I can't work like this anymore. Like I'm not enjoying the manual stuff. I'm enjoying the, like, actually working with the humans and with the people, but all of the other stuff, it's like I can't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
When I made that decision, I pretty much, like, when at the peak of the fear of what that meant. Who is Tara without the academy? Like, without tantra, maybe not. I don't know what I'm meant to do. Um, Freaked out, felt it, held myself in it, knowing that every previous time I've jumped, I've done beyond better than I could have expected. So this time I was like excited, because the level of fear equaled the level of excitement. And it meant I finally could leap. And when I did entertain the idea of not working for the academy in that capacity anymore, I landed in Costa Rica. And that's a whole nother story. 4 hours
Mm-hmm.
later, got asked to hold kirtan in the community at a wake that has the International Music Festival that I'm singing at. And it's just like spirit went, well done. And
Mm-hmm.
every time spirit does that, the last well done was, and here's like a tantra academy that you're going to grow and foster with Chantel into the Embodied Awakening Academy. And here's kirtan, which is the next part of your journey, which is to dive deeply into devotion, which has been my path, and integrate that even more deeply with Tantra. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
so grateful to be able to share about it today, because it's just, now that I've got the space actually, and it's beautiful, like by letting go and connecting to where my joy and passion is moving me, then your mum and I found this like perfect way to both be a yes to hold an academy, because we were both exhausted, and keep being in a service to others in a way that's also service to ourselves. And it's really easy and simple, actually.
Mm. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
doing the things you love, get other people to do the things that you're not, and let's not, like, let's not keep creating. Let's just chill for a little bit and keep doing the things that we've got, and then open and expand to doing more and creating more and sharing more with the world when there's a spaciousness for that and it feels right in our nervous systems. So we're
Mm.
like,
Yeah, yeah, and experiencing like talking to you before you let go and you were still kind of scared, and then after it's just like you are a whole different person, and it like I can just feel this different energy with you, this freedom, like Costa being in Costa Rica is, yeah, it's been really beautiful to witness how you've just like expanded again and to a whole nother level.
yeah, and I don't think I'm judging myself here, maybe a little bit, but when I look back, and I do this with every big shift that there's fear around, I look back and I'm like, I had a sense way back then that it was all going to be okay, because when I told people like you and Sasha and our good friends and your mum, even, everyone celebrated me in it. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going to end up homeless and, whatever it is. So it's like, even that, the reason that wow, interesting. The reason that I've been reconnecting to my devotion so deeply is because I can watch myself and go, I'm just not believing in the existence of spirit. I'm not believing in the existence of God when I'm in stress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And with my logical mind, I'm like, so what? You believe in God, but then sometimes you're not accepting that what's going on is going to be okay and part of the whole plan. which means I must believe that God can just like go on holiday and be like, oh, sorry, Tara, your life's all fucked up and you're stressed because, I just like checked out for a while. And now I'll check back in and we'll work it all out. It's like, no, you either believe or you don't believe when things are great and when things aren't great.
Yeah.
And
And it's like,
so we're getting
yeah, and it's easy to surrender and be like, trust spirit when everything's going great, but the real test is when everything is hitting the wall and you're like going low and it's fucking intense.
Abso-fucking-lutely. And that's where the work is, and that's why we do a daily practice. And that's why we catch ourselves, like the example I gave you today, right? I caught myself, luckily, because life interjected and I had a moment to pause, but ideally I would have caught myself earlier and not been on my phone and laptop trying to do this stuff and going, it's going to be okay. I'll get to this tomorrow.
Yeah.
When you have time and space, everything doesn't have to be now. People can wait. Messages can wait to be responded to. Yeah, and
everything can wait except for looking after yourself. That is in the moment, that is not needing to wait. And I've been loving how you've been with social media. I'm like, this and this needs to get done. You're like, I do it tomorrow, and then you're like, I had to go self pleasure. I had to go do this and that. I'm like, great, Tara. Fuck yeah, I love it.
I know. There's so much moving through me. I want to create, but then there's just all these fun things. Like my biggest problem is like there's so many fun things. I can't do them all.
Yeah.
First world fucking problems. My God. But that's where we can get to. Like we live in a quantum existence. Science has proven that. And so we are manifesting our reality. And that is a very simplistic, and that's probably a whole nother live as well. But, I love Joe Dispenza's work so much. I particularly love reconditioning the body to a new mind meditation. It's actually the only one I do of his. And he gets you familiar with being in the unknown, which is to limitless possibilities, which is spaciousness, stillness, it's that Shiva energy. And then he goes through all the qualities of courage, of fearlessness, of passion, of safety, which is the energetics of the deities, and gets you to breathe them and hold them in your body. So that's another way of doing things. But we live in a quantum mentality. And so if we're clearing our emotional body of past trauma and experiences that aren't in a line with our true cosmic reality, then we're going to keep awakening and remembering, and then we can work with energy. And then we can use that energy not just to heal from our past, but actually to manifest our future. And that's when you start working with Lakshmi, to manifest abundance and other things. And it's eternal. Expansion, bliss, beauty is eternally expanding. So yeah.
That was great. That was so. I had chills so many times when you were talking. I was just like, whoa.
Oh, thanks, babe. They're good chills. Yeah. Remembering's great. Remembering truth is so good. And then we forget. And then we remember. And then we remember.
Yeah.
This too shall pass. Remembering this too shall pass. This too shall pass.
All right. Well, should we end it there?
Yeah, let's.
Beautiful. Well, thank you guys for watching. I will see you next week. Is it us live again next week? No, we've got a couple lives until. Yeah, so I'll be live with Sasha next week. We'll be doing vocal alchemy and sound healing. So stay tuned for that next week. Yeah. Thank you all for watching.
I'll see you next month. We're doing monthlies, right?
Yeah. All right. Bye, guys.